Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Johnversations Podcast, number 31. As always, I'm your host, John Connor, and my guest today is an amazing street artist based in Los Angeles, California, who you may have seen on The Amazing Race on CBS or on the HBO Max series Craftopia. Her unique use of crochet to create art pieces made entirely from yarn has brought smiles to communities around the world. Her book, Crochet with London Kaye, Projects and Ideas to Yarn Bomb Your Life, is available now. Ladies and gentlemen, listen at home, in your car, on your computer, YouTube, please give a very, very warm welcome to the insanely talented Miss London Kaye. London, thank you so much for being here. I greatly appreciate it.
I'm so happy to chat with you after an introduction like that. I can't wait to see where this goes. Thank you for having me.
No, you're most certainly welcome. And I was really excited when you agreed to come on, because you are one of those people where, first of all, I recognize some of your work without knowing that it was you. And so the way that I kind of likened it is like, you know, you see a painting in school a bunch and then you go to a museum and you're like, oh, like these paintings that I've seen, they've all been done by the same person. You kind of connect it in your head. And that was very much the feeling that I had when I started looking at your work. And the one, this is going to sound probably really silly compared to all of like the amazing things that you've done. The one that I remember sticking out, that I remember the most, is the TBS commercial where the old ladies are knitting the quilt and then it hang, you know, and I always just thought, I was like, oh, you know, they did that on a computer or something, made it look. And then I was like, oh no, like she did this by hand. So I've seen that. I had heard about the billboard that you did, and we'll talk about that as well. But just after I recognized those pieces, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe she agreed to come on and sit down and talk. So again, I know I've said it before, but thank you so much for being here. And how is everything going with you? Are you doing okay during this crazy COVID quarantine time? How's life?
Man, I think all of us, it's like been in phases. I feel like we're now like a few phases down the line from when it started to how we're feeling today. But just before this interview, I was actually sitting in traffic on the 5 around 11 o'clock. And I was like, wow, we're back to just like midday traffic. But I'm doing well. I love hearing what people's like favorite pieces always are, because it's always so different. I would say usually people talk about like the water pipe. I make like water dripping out of a pipe. So I love that you've seen the TBS commercial. That was pretty cool, and a long time ago.
Yeah, I really like, speaking of the water pipe, you did one that was like slime that I thought was really cool. I was like, that looks, and so I guess to start it off for people, because, you know, we said yarn bombs. I had mentioned in the intro that, you know, you do these amazing crochet pieces, but for people who may not kind of know you or your work, I guess in your own words, talk a little bit about like what you do, because, you know, some would say, oh, you know, she crochets, but I am of the camp, and I would think that you would agree with this, but like, it's not like you're doing sweaters and things like that. You're doing giant art installations. So kind of like, in your words, talk to me a little bit about what it is that you do.
Sure. I was working at the Apple Store. It was in like 2013, and I always crocheted just for fun, but I was like trying to figure out what I really wanted to do with my life. And an artist came in late at night. Her name's Oleg, and she was dressed in head to toe like crochet, or she had a cool bag, something. And she left the store, and I Googled her name, and I stumbled upon this thing called yarn bombing. And yarn bombing is where you take a piece of knit or crocheted fabric and traditionally wrap it around something. So a lot of people have seen yarn bombing where like trees are wrapped, and you kind of just, you know, give it a little extra cozy sweater. And I've always been into street art, like living in New York. It's just so fun. Street art changes all the time. It makes people brings people into the current moment, I guess you could say. And when you're in the present, kind of all your troubles go away for that little second. So seeing a surprising piece of street art was something I loved. So I was like, you know what? Let me take a scarf that I've made. Let me wrap it around a tree outside of my house and see what happens. And it stayed up. And over the course of, you know, a few years, I gave myself a 30-day challenge. So over like 30 days, I really started developing my own style, doing not so much wrapping things, but more crocheting pictures and hanging them on chain link fences. Because Brooklyn had a lot of chain link fences, it was just kind of a natural progression for me to be able to make the work a bit more creative and also say more, because you can only say so much by wrapping a tree or a fire hydrant or a whatever. So that's kind of a brief overview of yarn bombing, perhaps.
Well, and I will say again, looking at your work, again, I don't know any other way to describe it, like, but as art, and it's I don't know, it's crazy. Like you do, the wings that you do, and then you see all these like, what is that feeling like? Because I want to kind of talk about like how you grew up and stuff like that, but one thing I wanted to ask you just kind of off the jump is, you're obviously spending a good amount of time on each. I mean, some of these installations are as big as, you've done television studios and things like that, like covering entire walls. So when you invest that much time and then you get to see people that are like, I have to get a picture in front of these, or I have to get a picture with these mermaids, or, when you, and I guess especially right now with all of there's so much out there just to be like down in the ground about. So what is that feeling like for you when you get to see somebody kind of connect with that in that moment?
It's incredible to see. So I like every part of it because like you said, some of them are very large and crocheting takes a lot of time. So I love the crocheting actually process of making things, the hanging it up on the street and, the adrenaline rush that sometimes goes along with that is pretty cool. But then it's hard to pick a favorite, but equally as amazing of a part is to step back and watch people pass the art on the street. I mean, some walk by looking at their phones and downtown LA is kind of loud if you're hearing things.
No problem at all.
Oh, cool. Now there's an alarm going off, but the windows are closed.
That's right. It's city life. It's,
Yeah.
We're all home. You deal with what you got to deal with. Not a big deal.
Exactly. But seeing people walking down the street and just like stopping and being surprised, it's always really exciting when there's like a restaurant surprisingly right across the street from a piece that I just hung up where I can like go and get a little bite to eat and like watch the art for 30 minutes or so. Because when you leave, like you don't know how long these things are going to stay up. Like you have to be all right with like setting it free and not knowing if tomorrow it's going to be gone. So that's always tough, but being able to watch people and see their emotions is really great. And also like social media is good too for being able to like see people's thoughts when they pass, even if I'm not there. But the best place to yarn bomb is like your own neighborhood, because then you like know the community, you can check on the work, and it's nice. Then like people in your community get to know you and stuff. So I have two going strong right now here in the Arts District. One is a yarn bomb on a tree that says boat right in front of a coffee shop. That's very trendy and always has a line.
I saw that one. It looks awesome.
Thank you. Hopefully making some people encouraging voting is always good. And then the other one are these three girls from Clueless, and they have face masks on. And I thought they were going to be gone the next day. They have been up for well over a month now. And that's always really cool because it means like, I don't know, people respect it more almost if they're not pulling it down right away. So it's great to see how people feel. And it's sad when they're down, but that's why taking a good picture in the moment is always super important.
Well, yeah, and I think your Instagram does an amazing job of, because a lot of us think about, Instagram is, we're just taking pictures and kind of sharing, but I think the best accounts out there really are like archives, you know what I mean? And I feel like with your work, that's exactly what it does, because, and I also think a lot of people don't kind of realize this about artists, whether it be, I grew up playing in bands, I toured, I lived in a van for years. I've done several different records with several different bands, and while you're working on it, you're like, okay, this is mine. Like, I've got to get it right. Like, it's got to like be as like close to perfect or say what I want it to say as I can. And then you put it out and it's no longer yours. And I don't think a lot of people really, if you aren't doing some kind of art like music or painting or yarn bombing, things like that, I don't think people really understand that thought process that goes into it, is that like, oh, once I hang this up, it's no longer mine. It's, it could be up for 10 minutes or 6 months. It's yours to do with it. Is that like a thought process that you had to kind of grow into gradually? I mean, was it tough for you at first to kind of, because I can imagine me, I would just be going by like every couple of days and be like, it's still okay, it's still there. Good.
It was at the beginning, nothing was too complicated. Like it really was like taking scarves and wrapping them around every tree on my block. So I think it was like a slow progression to like actually creating something that took a long time that I was like really proud of and wanted to stay up. Like, I just think that the things at the beginning were so simple that I was okay with it. Also, I would put things like in the subway. Like I would be going home from work and I would be like yarn bombing the subway pole, and I would do it as like a speed test. I worked at the Apple store in Chelsea. So I'd take the L, and when I transferred to the G, I think I had like 3 stops on the G train, and I'd have to do the whole yarn bomb, tag it, and get out before my stop. And it was really fun. So like things like that, I didn't expect to stay up. But then when things started, I don't know, I think I've always been all right with it. There's only been one that's been tragic in my mind. It was 10 girls, each one dressed, 10 crocheted people, obviously, dressed from head to toe in actual looks from Vogue covers, starting from 1910 going to modern day. And it was International Women's Day. I woke up early in the morning. I was like, I'm hanging them up in Soho. And because I spent so long on them, I never do this, but I was like, at the end of the day, I'm going to go back and cut them down and save them for something else in the future. And within 2 hours, I knew through social media, like they were gone. The tag even got taken. So
that's sad. And, I'm sure, because it doesn't seem like something like necessarily the city would take down. I mean, I wonder do you think it's people that are just like, oh, this is awesome, I want to take it home and like put it on my wall? Or, I would hope it's that, instead of someone just being like, look, somebody put all this effort into it, now I'm just going to be spiteful and mess it up. I would like to imagine that they're hanging in somebody's house somewhere, so at least someone's getting to enjoy them still.
Exactly. And I've gotten people will message me sometimes being like, I took this and now it's hanging in my bedroom, or like, so it's like, I always say, whoever takes it loves it so much, can't live without it, and that's why it's gone. That particular one seemed a bit more like they saw me post it on social media and then somebody came and took them on purpose. That one just seemed a little less positive hearted. But the ones in the subway, those get cut down by like maintenance people. That's why I usually don't put things in like parks, anywhere that has a cleaning crew. I would stay against that, because you want the person to take it to like want the actual art for a good reason, not for the trash. Yeah.
And, I like to think, me personally, I think I would like to think that there's more good people out there that are like, oh, I want to have this forever, than there are, pardon my language, but just dicks out there that are like, oh, I'm just going to take this down to, be exactly that. So, exactly. But, I wanted to ask you, because I wanted to talk a little bit more about, kind of before you found your inspiration and before you started yarn bombing. If I understand correctly, you went to school for dance prior to, and I that runs in your family. I've had your sister on. I've seen her dance. She danced in Nashville. And so when I saw that you went, I was like, oh, well, it's in the genes. So, talk a little bit about that transition, because is that something that you were like, this is what I'm going to do, and life just happened, or, walk me through that a little bit.
Well, I grew up dancing my whole life. I did, ballet, dance competitions, Nutcracker every year. But in the 9th grade, I actually broke my back in 2 places because I would do gymnastics on the dance floors So I had to stop dancing for a year, and I wore a brace to school. I was a very small 9th grader, so I wore just like baggy clothes. But it was really sad because like dancing was like my life. And so I actually crocheted. I learned when I was 13, and in 9th grade, I kind of started my own business. Oh my gosh, I have this here from a different thing I was talking about. But so what I would do is, this is my actual first like little sample book. And if you aren't watching the video, I'm just showing index cards with yarn glued on it.
That's awesome.
But I would take this to school, and people would pick what color yarn, colors they want for their scarves, and I'd custom make scarves for them. So that was cool. But my back healed it fairly well. I could go back dancing, but no more like gymnastics and pounding on the dance floors. And I ended up getting a full scholarship to NYU for dance. But because of the injury, I knew I never wanted to be a professional dancer. But how can you say no to New York City?
Right.
And
that's the the I think that's the artist's like romantic dream is like, I got accepted to NYU, and whether it's film school or dance, or it's like,
Exactly.
I got it. You have to take it.
Yeah. And I mean, I still loved dancing, but I didn't go to college, like being like, I have to be a professional dancer. I do wish I took more classes that would, like, accounting would have been nice. Perhaps I got a minor, but it was a really fun way to go through college, and I would never change anything. I still take ballet. Like right now I take ballet via whatever the ballerinas are doing online, but it's still like a part of my life and I love it, but wasn't going to be my career path.
Well, it seems like though that those are the people that tend to make the most impact, and then those are the people who tend to kind of leave the lasting impressions. It's like you took all your eggs and you put them in one basket, and that basket just happened to be a crocheted basket. You know what I mean? Like it's I don't know. I feel like those are the people that there's not a lot of people out there that are like, oh yeah, I have my foot half in and I just kind of, from the luck of the draw. It's like, you got to throw yourself in if you're going to make something happen, or, just realize it's not. One thing I did want to ask, because I know you had mentioned, maybe I should have taken like an accounting class or something like that. When your sister was on the show, Chase, she had said that, she grew up kind of just knowing that she was going to be in the arts somehow. And that, there was nobody that was like, well, you should have a backup plan or anything like that. Was that a similar experience for you? I mean, was this just, all or nothing from the beginning?
What I say in kind of that same line, that's funny that she said that. Like my dad's a writer. My mom was our dance teacher. She's an artist. My sister's an actress. And like, I didn't know that you could go and like get a law degree and have like it's not that I didn't know. It's just that we were never like guided towards that at all. Like we were always taught like, follow your dreams, which is so kind. Thank you. But like, follow your dreams, do whatever you want. You'll be all right. Which is all great. But like when I graduated college, I got a job working at the Apple store because I was like, I need something stable with health insurance that I can pay my rent in New York and like, because I like almost craved a bit of consistency, I feel like, right when I left college, because it just seemed a little too much right away. So it was cool having that job. And it wasn't until about 2.5 years in that I was like, all right, let me start doing street art for fun. I had still same full-time job for a whole year. And because then I started kind of making a little money, I was able to go part-time. And then it wasn't until another year that I was able to quit. So it was actually like the best thing in the world, having a consistent job while I was like doing this, because I didn't dream that it would turn into anything. I was able to just kind of like follow truly what I wanted to do and say yes to things because that was what I wanted with the crochet world. And over time, it was able to be a very organic transition into full-time life as a crochet artist.
Well, and let me ask you this. I mean, is there a moment, because, I think people who follow you, I'm sure they've all seen, the photo of you crocheting in the subway, or, there's these images that, if someone is a fan of yours, I think kind of immediately pop into their brain, whether it's, a piece or you kind of demonstrating what you're doing. Was there a moment for you? Because I know you said, I was working full time, then I was able to come down like part time. Was there a moment in your head where you were like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do? Like this was it, I guess, is there a second in your mind where you can be like, this is where you knew that change was?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I think it was just like a lot of little things. Like at Apple, Steve Jobs, like in a commencement speech that he gave at graduation that was very famous. It was like, follow your heart and do what you love and good things will follow. Like, and so right away, I was always getting these little like signs that it was the right thing to do. But to work for yourself and like be able to support yourself. And I mean, that was just scary for me, like not knowing that like what if I quit and everything will be gone tomorrow? So it was really cool. I think the switch happened when people started telling me that like I'm inspiring them, which still is like, I think like the biggest compliment ever. But I think that maybe was what it took for me to be like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I can do it. So.
I mean, that's got to be an awesome feeling just to know, again, like being an artist and putting things out into the world, you always hope that someone's going to resonate with it or there's going to be that connection. So like, even when you hear it, I know for me, like, when we were in the band and we were playing, put out this record and then we started playing shows and we were going to places that we've never played before. And the people in the crowd knew the words. And I was like, what the hell? Like,
Cool.
How does anyone in, like Indiana know what we're, this is my first time here. So it's, it's cool when you've got that feeling that like, oh, like I've put this out and it's resonated with someone. And that I feel like that's kind of, at least for me has always been like, that's what makes it all worth it. Like even with the podcast, I'm hoping that somebody listens to this and is like, oh, well, she loved what she did. And so that's what she does. And hopefully somebody will connect with you that way and kind of, I don't know, maybe we're changing lives today. So.
I think so. You're changing my life today.
Oh, I don't know about it. Trust me, I'm the humble one. So, or I'm the grateful one.
Is super. I really like this angle you got going. You're inspiring my setup here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I did want to ask, one thing that I was kind of curious about is, most people, when you think crochet, I think your natural reaction is to think of like your grandmother or like that aunt with like the 9 cats, you know what I mean? Like you've got, and I actually have some younger friends. Unfortunately I'm a smoker. So I have a friend, Morgan, who actually knitted me she crocheted me a cigarette holder that like I could put my little, yeah. And I was trying to find it for this interview. We moved in this house, so it's in storage somewhere. And then I have a friend, her name is Nikki, that she knits. This is a shark cap. So it's a great white shark. Good. And then when you open it up, the mouth goes on your head. So she cage dives with sharks. That's what she does. And so she does this on the side and makes them, like she said, this is the only thing that she knows how to do. But wow. I was curious, like you think about those older folks typically, but then it seems like it's something that is being picked up on, especially now by like a younger generation. Like, talk to me about like that feeling or the importance of that, because, I want to get to Craftopia as well, because I watched that episode and it blew my mind and I want to talk about that. But, like, what is it? Have you found a lot of young people kind of being like, how do I get into this? Or does it feel good, like bringing up the next generation?
Definitely. I think it's just been a trend in general for like the Etsy DIY style life. Definitely has been kind of trendy, I would say, the last 5 or 6 years. So that I think in general has helped more young people just get more into crafty DIY stuff, and crocheting lends itself well to that. But I hear all the time like, oh, I thought you'd be older or whatever. But there's something about the crochet when people see it on the street, it does immediately have like that nostalgic feeling about it that you don't get from like a painted mural necessarily. And so instantly people like connect with it in a different way. And by doing something that's way more out of the box, way more fun and different and relatable, because I'm inspired by things going on in the world and pop culture and bright colors. I think people are maybe like, oh, I could do that. And I just use one stitch. It's called single crochet. It's the most basic stitch. Your friend that made the shark hat could make, oh, she's good. She can definitely do what I do. So it's not like it's a hard technique to handle either. And it lets you be very creative. And everybody else has their own way of expressing themselves. So even though you may do something with the same stitch, what you create is very different. So I think, I don't know if in general, like, it's not me that's bringing the younger generation in, but I think yarn bombing in general is catching on more and more and more. And by more people seeing it, more people are doing it, which is great.
Well, yeah. And that's one of the things I get from looking at your art is it does have kind of like what you said. It gives you that nostalgia, but there are very few things out there that I feel like can give you, there's very few things out there. It's like picturing your grandmother, but then she's wearing like skinny jeans and a Mumford and Sons hat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like there's not a lot of things out there that can do that. So it's like seeing the skill and then kind of seeing it brought, like, for example, and I wanted to talk about this when your sister was on the show. We kind of ran out of time. But I mean, you guys went on a road trip where you crocheted a vehicle for Carvana. And like, not only did you crochet a vehicle, you crocheted a vehicle and then got on the interstate doing 70 miles an hour. So like, talk to me about like what kind of challenge, like, cause I mean, again, you think, your grandma knitting a sweater or a scarf, or I got you these socks. You don't think, your grandma being like, well, I've got a Ford Escape here. Let me figure out, So like, talk to me a little about what kind of challenge was that?
That was so much fun. It was unbelievable. Usually I've been pretty lucky. Projects come to me. This project, I actually reached out to the company Carvana because I'd worked with them before on a different crocheted vehicle. And I reached out to them and kind of pitched them this idea of like my sister and I going across country in a crocheted car and just like kind of spreading happiness as we went. And we would make like a YouTube series for them as we go. And they said yes. So the first challenge, of course, is the car, getting yarn onto the car. And legally, they couldn't give us one of their cars. We had to get a rental car. They wrapped the rental car in vinyl. I attached crochet to the car. We drove across country, unwrapped the vinyl, and I had to return it to the car.
Oh, no.
I felt like I got away with murder. Okay, that's not what you asked, though. It's just, I get a kick out of it.
Well, I can just imagine being like, okay, like I didn't smoke in it, but I got to take all this vinyl off.
Right. Oh my gosh. But the challenge, I mean, it was really windy, hot. We drove through the desert. So at the beginning, like some crocheted stuff was kind of flying around and I had to fix it. But that was the benefit of me actually being one of the people in the car as we drove across. But we thought there would be people stopping us, saying maybe mean things, maybe pulling at the car at night and making it look bad in the morning, getting gas. I mean, that was always a show. But we did not cross one person in all of the states we crossed that gave us anything but a smile. It was like, as we were driving down the street, sometimes like Chase and I would forget that we're in a crocheted car and we'd be like, what are they looking at? Oh yeah, hi. And
everybody's waving.
Oh yeah, waving, taking pictures, honking horns. Like it was a blast to see just like how much goodness really is in our country. But also just how crochet brings out happiness. And it was a car that was wrapped in purple crochet with wildflowers from all the state's flowers that we were driving through. So it was a purple car with flowers on it. It was pretty extra, but it was so fun. It was sad when I went back to the black car.
Yeah, I can, I think it was Ken Kesey in the 60s who had the school bus with all the, like the Merry Marauders or whatever. And it was all, and that's kind of what I like thought of when I watched it. I was like, oh, it's like that, but like a hybrid. Like it's bringing it into the new age.
Yeah.
No, it was very, very cool. And I think that's probably, and I mean, I can link up for people who want to go back and check it out. We can put the link in for the YouTube series. But I remember like watching the first episode and like you see that, you just see people that are pulling up next to you. And like, I think the great thing about it is that you guys actually capture your response when it first happens. Cause you're like, oh my God, they're taking pictures and like they're waving. It's just like, oh, okay, this is what this whole trip is going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. Like like I said, it's one thing to like paint a picture. It's one thing to like write a song and record it. What you do is almost like living and breathing in a way. Okay, let's talk Kelly Clarkson for a second. So you do this crazy mural you do this crazy mural for Kelly Clarkson. You're on the show. You get to, you're kind of teaching her how to do things. Like, what's that experience like? You know what I mean? Because like I said, I'm in a band. I was in a band. American Idol came out like right when I was must have been like middle school. Like Kelly Clarkson was like that. Since you've been gone, she hits that high note. It's still like, ugh. So like, I know I'd be kind of freaking out a little bit if it was me. So what's that kind of experience like for you?
Well, like everyone, I think everyone loves Kelly Clarkson. With these, like a lot of these jobs for companies and whatnot, the thing that is good about them and bad sometimes is that they have really fast timelines. So a project like that comes in, they have a really fast timeline. It's a big company, it's NBC. So there's a lot of layers and approval that has to go on. And the artist, sadly, at least me as an artist, sadly, is usually like the bottom of the totem pole to find things out. It's not like they're rushing to get the answer about a crocheted broom when they're dealing with the whole other show. But it's awesome. I love it. I like when a project like that, they have exactly what they want crocheted. So they'll give me a design and I can be like, yes, I can crochet this. I always say yes, even if I just can't.
If you can't say no, I'll figure it out. So
right, exactly. So it's yes. And but a lot of times I sketch things out first. I'll usually, and this is for big companies too. They'll be like, okay, we want something like this. And I'll sketch out a few options for them with different pricing. And we work back and forth that way with sketches before the crochet process begins. So with Kelly Clarkson, super fast turnaround. It was actually like a year ago, I want to say, not today. It was about a year ago that the room went up. And then they told me, and you get to be on the show. And that's when the nerves all set in. Because I'm very confident, like crocheting and putting up art. But like even Zooming and FaceTiming and all this that we've been doing in this new world, I'm like, okay, I got to get more and more comfortable with that side of it. But she's so nice and so fun. And actually I interviewed with her again because they're starting season 2. So I think it'll be out when this podcast is out. I Zoomed with Kelly Clarkson again. So
that's awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm blanking on his name, but it was, you did the segment with the guy from, he's a New Girl, right? Yeah. And he's, my wife loves New Girl, we watch that show, like the full run. So he's just so funny. Yeah. Max Greenberg. Yeah. He's hilarious, but I don't know. It's like one thing I like, cause I've watched a lot of interview, like segments that you did kind of researching. And once I was like thinking about asking you to come on, and one thing that I really enjoy about watching you is that like, again, there's a certain kind of person that when they're doing something, if you get to see them actually do it, you can see that energy kind of come through. And you're just like, you're sitting there and you're going super fast, but you're smiling and you're, you know what I mean? Like you're giving people crocheted hearts and teaching people how to make, pom-poms and stuff. And it's like, I don't know. It's just fun to watch somebody who is so passionate about what they do and then is so good at what they do that it makes you like, I don't know, it's like a double whammy almost.
Thank you. I procrastinate crocheting with other crocheting. Like
I should be doing this, but I want to do this. Like
I'm going to crochet this, even though I have to crochet that. Like I love to crochet. I feel so lucky that I get to do really what I love more than anything, but it's not, I wish it was 12 hours of crocheting every day, but because it is like my job and my business, unfortunately, I can't just sit and crochet or else it wouldn't be my job.
Well, yeah, and I like, you do some very, very intricate pieces, but then you do some stuff that's just, it seems simple and it's just funny. Like on your, you did the 420 post where you just dropped the green yarn in. And I was like, that's a genius idea. It was so funny. And then my favorite thing was going through the comments and people being like, I don't get it. Like, I don't know what it is. I thought I was laughing so hard going through the comments. I did want to ask you this, because I know you said like, you procrastinate with crocheting and, it doesn't seem like there's enough time in the day and stuff like that. So, you were on The Amazing Race, 3rd place. that's a big commitment. That's, you're traveling the world. I mean, talk to me a little bit about that experience, because I imagine that it's probably really fun and really exciting. But was there any of that, like, hey, as much as I'm having a good time kind of running all over the place, like I would like to just be sitting and, working on a piece or something like that?
I loved it. I was a fan of the show before I did the show. So, and traveling the world for free, my goodness, it was just like such an amazing opportunity. I couldn't pass it up. And I've always been like super active, like with the dance background, like I've always been into that sort of stuff. I'm not good at directions, and neither was my partner. So I think that probably was our demise in the end. But it was cool. No phone, no technology. I don't think for a whole month. That's how long it took to film. So that was a really, like, looking back, I think that was something that in the moment you didn't really realize as much. But when are we going to have like a month without a phone or computer is really strange. But the yarn I brought, the bottom part of my backpack was yarn. And that was just for fun, to crochet at airports, make things for people, whatever. About 6 episodes in, I ditched the yarn, because that's when I got really serious. And it's so physically, like, you're so exhausted and stuff every night. I don't even remember thinking about crocheting that much. But when I got back, my sister, who's come up quite a bit in this interview, which I love, my beautiful sister, we lived together at the time, and she took over my business. And oh my gosh, what she had to deal with. I feel so bad now in the moment. Like, I had no idea. I couldn't know. So coming back and finding out some of the things she had to handle when I was gone made me feel terrible. But yeah, I'm lucky to have her and my family.
Yeah, and I mean, it's I can imagine after episode 6, it's like, all right, these needles are no longer for crochet. It's like I'm cutting throats. I'm getting to that number 1 spot. But it is good. Like, it's good to have somebody, like, even with the show, I live, 15 minutes outside of Nashville, but my post-production editor has been a friend of mine for a very long time, and he's in Michigan. So, without him, it would be such a struggle. So it's good. I mean, it's always good to have somebody in your corner that's like, hey, I've got you. I'm here to help you. Shout out to Mat Halliday. But then to also, to have that connection with somebody that, is your sister has got to be extra awesome. And I'll tell you, I mean, I'll have either one of you guys on the show, or if you ever want to come on together, like, you guys are both so nice and amazing. And I don't know. I don't think there's a pair of sisters that I enjoy talking to more. I'll just say that. So,
thank you. And you won't have to edit either of our episodes with bad language.
Oh, it makes it so easy. Or maybe we can get you there. Maybe one day, one of you. No, I'm just kidding. But so, I also wanted to ask a little bit about, so HBO Max has this new series, Craftopia, and you got to be a guest judge. And I watched, so one thing I want to ask you first is, what is it like to, like, find yourself on HBO and be in that situation? And then number 2, what is it like to interact with these amazing kids? Because, like, Jonah was like a machine. Like, I was watching him and I was like, I don't know how, like, somebody does anything that fast, and he's just going to town. And, like, he's got a huge social media, like, he's going to be a juggernaut. So, kind of tying it into the seeing these young kids come up and stuff like that. Like, what is that like, being in that situation?
It was so unexpected that HBO would have me, or just like have a show, I guess. This show is all about encouraging kids to think outside the box, be creative. They give them challenges. And it just was such, I don't know why, it seems like, why was this not already a thing? So I'm just so happy that the show exists. And my episode in particular, like you said, just getting to watch Jonah, who I had seen on social media before, because he is a very fast crocheter, see how he handles a challenge like that. And the other 2 girls, how when they're under pressure can still remain calm and cool and sweet. And, like, we're grown up. That's not easy to sit there and have a time frame and to do something creative and then, be judged on it. So it was really exciting to see how just well they handled themselves. And also it's fun to give feedback on these projects. And, you want to be constructive and give them something maybe tangible that they can improve on in the future, but also doing it with like the most positive spin and possible was a fun thing to do. But they actually let me give Jonah his win. I think it was just the first one. I'm not going to give out any spoilers.
Yeah, you can watch it HBO Max. If you don't have it, it's on sale right now, I think, for like $11.99 instead of...
I think they have a 30-day free trial.
Yeah, so, I mean, even if you don't, just watch that. It's awesome. Like, finish the series out. Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing, too, is like, we're a big Food Network family, so we watch, a lot of like Chopped and Chopped Junior, and I'm always like, I think you always worry, or to me, I've thought like, oh man, I don't know if I could be the person that was like, let me tell this kid that they're eliminated and then like, but have to do it in a way. And then I'm always like, what if they freak out? Like you're just waiting for that episode where they're like, I'm not going anywhere. Just, sit on the ground. So like, was there any of that kind of fear in your head of just like, how do I do this in a constructive way? Because all of their projects, again, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but like all of their projects for being so young, they executed much better than I could as an adult. And they were all, I mean, I'd sit in front of a computer and talk to people. They're insanely creative. So like, was there any fear about that or like preparation as to, how am I going to approach this if I do have to send someone home?
Because I'd never done anything like it before, being a judge on a TV show was different than I thought. They take it very slowly. And you may know from your past history, but just like the show was filmed in these segments. So they kind of like prep you pretty well on like, okay, right now we're going to film you. We want you to do something like this. And then they'll give a few minutes before they actually film it. So it gave me time to kind of really think about what I was going to say. And I love that when you don't know what to expect. And so therefore you can't be nervous. It's the best feeling in the world, I think. Like, if I would have known maybe some of the things going into it, it would have just maybe made me a bit more anxious. But I was so relaxed and comfortable with the whole thing the whole time. So, yeah.
Well, the one thing I really like about it is, if you're on like Chopped as an adult or, like any of those shows, if you lose, you just go home. It's like, hey, sorry, buddy, go home. And what I really liked about this one is that even when somebody got eliminated, they were like, but hey, by the way, here's like, keep doing what you're doing. We're going to give you money. So that's always nice to see. It's like, it's got to make it, I forget her name, but the little girl was like, I could get a pretty good horse for like, yeah. I was like, oh, it's so cute. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It was just watching Jonah. I was like, this kid is like a cyborg. There's no way that he's, like all human. Cause he does like the double stitch and stuff like that. Like I learned. I was like, what's the difference between the two of these?
You even knew what the difference between crocheting and knitting was, I think, because you've been saying crochet the whole time. And that's good.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, like I said, my friend Morgan, she would be like, that's not what it is. Don't.
Right. I learned from working at the Apple store never to correct people because people would always call the products the wrong thing. And it's like, you just have to correct them politely in conversation later. So that's what I tend to do with the knitting.
Well, I want to get to the book as well because I want to make sure that we're talking about that. And you also do there it is right there. You do some great things on your website as well, which I want to get to. But before I talk to you about that, the other thing is that from what I understand, you kind of challenge yourself a little bit with, hey, I'm not just, going to crochet with yarn or things like that. Like, I know you've said you've done like Ethernet cables and all of these, like, so talk to me a little bit about that. Like, what is that like to challenge yourself? What got you there? Like, what are some of the favorite things that you've done, outside of the box?
Well, the whole quarantine thing, I feel like a lot of us, when we first found out we were going to be inside a lot more, we cleaned. And so I too like organized so much in my house, and I had all this extra caution tape lying around. And so I was like, okay, let me try to crochet with caution tape. And it actually worked really well. And I ended up crocheting an entire map of the world out of caution tape, and I hung it up on Earth Day. And it's actually still up.
That's awesome.
I took advantage of less traffic in LA, and I drove pretty far to find like the perfect location for it. So I crocheted with caution tape. I crocheted with toilet paper at the start of quarantine. Plastic bags has always been a really cool thing to crochet with, because especially up at the top here, a lot of yarn, when you order it, it comes in packs of 3 with a plastic bag. So I always keep the plastic bags, and I cut that into yarn. And I crocheted a water pipe made of plastic bags. I crocheted bubbles at a art installation in Texas. It's all
awesome.
Underwater scene. So I crocheted the bubbles just because it like makes people think a little bit more, and it adds that extra layer. I just really like the added dimensions that these materials make. The Ethernet cable's hard, actually. It really hurts your wrist. I've made like a hat out of Ethernet cables over there. It's not so cute, but I tried.
I imagine it's a pretty heavy hat too. It's like,
and it has a lot of holes in it. So yeah, but it's cool to like keep on pushing the boundaries of what crocheting can do, because it's very flattering, and I love when people see what I do and make very similar things. It's nice, but that also just means like I need to keep on pushing myself to do more with it, because that's who I am.
Yeah. Well, and when you talk about the plastic bags, I remember Jonah on Craftopia was doing something like that as well. And I thought it was really, because I never would have thought about it, but he was like, it just shows people that you can do something more sustainable, like reuse these things instead of just throwing them. And then, kind of thinking about your underwater scene, I can imagine that, when you've got a big piece that's, mostly yarn, but then you've got these accent pieces of, bubbles from plastic bags or, different texture visual, it probably gives it, I imagine it would give it like a different kind of depth of field, or I don't know, it would just kind of make it stand out more because you're not seeing like the same texture all the way through.
Absolutely. And it just like, if you don't notice it at the beginning, it almost is exciting after you do take a closer look to like realize what it is. I think that's always a fun Easter egg sort of a feel.
Yeah. It reminds, I forget, maybe it's Monet, but there's the artist who does like everything is little dots. So when you get really, really close to it, all you see is little dots. But when you step back, it's like, oh, like, this is a whole thing, but it's just, and I think that's why I find what you do so fascinating. It's like just pieces of yarn that are, intertwined if you look at it close, but then if you can step back, it's like this. I mean, you did a Miller Lite, first of all, the most American beer billboard I think ever done. It's a Miller Lite crocheted giant billboard in New York City. Talk to me. I promise I want to talk about your book, but I want to know about that too. What kind of challenge is that to be like, hey, this is going up in Times Square. I got to do a giant billboard. Like how long did that take? What was that process like?
Well, that was the job that allowed me to quit my job at Apple. So it took all the way to crocheting a billboard, which still to this day is one of the craziest big projects I've ever done. So to quit a job is tough. But when I found out about this project, and again, this was like I quit in 2015. So 2015, it's been a few years, 5 years since then. So I had never really had a job this huge. And the billboard was 50 feet by 25 feet. I had 3 weeks to get the crocheting done, and then a week to assemble it. And I was going to a billboard factory in Ohio to assemble it. So first thing, I knew I had to get help. And I had never really gotten help before with any project because it would have been impossible for me to crochet all of it.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot, on your own.
Oh, impossible. It required 50 5-foot by 5-foot navy blue crocheted squares. So that was something that could easily be delegated. People could sit at home, crochet a square, and then bring it back to me. So that was the original plan. And I was like, okay, I can get my yarn at Michael's. No. That was silly. So I learned that I need to get yarn from a yarn company. And that's when I started working with Lion Brand Yarn. They were in New York. They are in New Jersey, and I was in New York at the time. So I was able to drive and get yarn, deliver it out to people. I crocheted everything that went on top of the billboard. So the beer bottles, the reindeer, whatever. I loaded it up in a minivan, drove to Ohio, pieced the whole thing together onto like these big pieces of vinyl. And then they rolled it up, drove it back to New York, and like a few days before Thanksgiving, it was unrolled in Times Square, and I almost puked. I thought like a beer bottle was going to fall off onto the street, or like something wouldn't go right. It was beautiful. You actually wouldn't know it's crocheted unless you take a closer look.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about, even if a beer bottle did fall off, it's not going to kill anybody. If anything, it's just going to keep them warm. So it's not.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's I mean.
It is.
Oh yeah. Let's see. For people who are watching, yeah, it's so cool. So yeah, I wanted to ask this. Was it hard for you, because I know you said it's just these blue squares, but was it as an artist, was it hard for you to be like, all right, I have to delegate this. I have to, or at that point where you're just like, I have to get it done, so I don't just do it. I don't care.
It's always hard. It's still hard for me to delegate stuff. But in that particular case, it wasn't too challenging, because what I was delegating was so simple, and I so needed it done. So it was like magic though. Like I put out a thing, like I needed help. Everybody came and picked it up. And like at the end of the day, the last person picked up the yarn, and it was like perfect amount of yarn, perfect amount of people that came to help. So it was just like, I was very lucky, I think too, but it was a very stressful time.
Well, I can imagine if like during that time, if the people at Michael's saw you pull in the parking lot, they were probably like, pull the shutters, close the doors. We don't have anything.
Yeah, no, it was so bad. That attempt was not good. So if there's anybody listening that needs a lot of yarn, I highly recommend ordering online.
Well, okay. So let's talk about your book, because I was very, very excited. I know it kind of came out like just before crazy quarantine and everything like that hit. So, tell me a little bit about, and I did some research on the book as well, but I'd like to hear from the person who wrote it. So what was the process like? Like, why did you choose to say like, hey, I'm going to put this out into the world?
Oh, it was such a cool process. Again, had no idea what it was going to be like. So kind of just listened to the publisher and did what they said the whole way through. It came out September 17th, 2019. So almost a year ago exactly, which is unbelievable. It feels, how I feel like this week flew by, it feels like this year actually has been quite slow and traumatic. But the book was so exciting. The process, it pretty much took a whole year. A publisher came to me saying like, hey, we think it'd be cool to do a book about yarn bonding. Would you want to submit a proposal? So it started with a proposal. The proposal got approved. There was some like negotiation for contract. And then it was pretty much like, all right, you're writing a book. You have the outline. Something that I've never done before is like the author, like I was in charge of the photos. So I had to hire a photographer, plan out photo shoots, have every single image. Like this was just something so new to me that now makes so much sense on why people have like shot lists and whatever.
Right.
So like organizing all of that, getting all the writing done. It was nice having an editor to be able to go back and forth and getting things all approved. But by the time it was done, it was way more therapeutic than I thought it would be, because the second half of the book is photos of my past work with stories about like the reasons why or what was going on at that time or why I put up that piece. And a lot of times it's like, I crocheted a mermaid, great, put it up. But then going back and like thinking about where I was in my life and the reasons why I was doing it is so much deeper with each piece than I maybe realized when I was actually creating it. So that, I didn't think that would be my favorite part, but by far, the second half of the book was really cool to get to have time for that process.
Yeah, it feels like it would almost be, and maybe this is a silly comparison, but I used to love this show, like VH1 Storytellers, where it was like you would see, somebody come up and they play their song, but they'd be like, okay, this is where I was. So was it fun for you to kind of be able to like step back and, we just had a comedian on, her name was Abby Crutchfield out of New York, and she was kind of talking about like how sometimes it's hard to make observations about your feelings in that moment because you're still processing those feelings. So like being able to go back, years later and look back, I mean, was it kind of cathartic, or did it put things into perspective for you or anything like that?
Absolutely. Very, very cathartic. And it's, like you said, in the moment, I wouldn't have even been able to put any words to it. So it's like almost something that we all need to do with our life every few years, like take some time with a journal to just be able to get our own thoughts into place, not even art-wise. I feel like you just saying that may be a big aha moment for me.
Well, and my wife keeps a journal. She did tell me, like, listen, don't ever read my journal because you'll probably find some stuff in there that I didn't mean about you, but I was angry. So I was like, gotcha. I've never opened that book once. But
one time I found a journal, and that's probably people's worst nightmares, right?
Oh, yeah.
Losing a journal. It was so boring. I was like, I only could read a little bit. So
maybe you didn't, maybe it was like one of those slow burn, when people are like, you got to wait till like episode 4, then it really gets good. Like
right,
you would have got a couple more pages, something crazy happened. Yeah. And that's really, that's, I have a daughter who is about to be 2. And, one of the things I've realized doing this podcast is like, man, like if something were to ever, like, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, like you're my 31st episode. So she would be able to go back and be like, let me get a sense of, who that is, of who he was as a person, or, even if she's going to have some, I'm sure she's going to have some time where she hates me and I'm the man. You know what I mean? She's like, you don't understand, Dad. So be like, nah, listen to this. But
a very dark yet positive statement all wrapped into one there.
Yeah. Well, when you have a kid, everyone's like, oh, congratulations. It's like, don't congratulate me until they're 18 and like a decent human. We still got some time to go. But I mean, the book, I don't know. It's got to be kind of cool to go back and revisit that. And then also in that same kind of way, like, hopefully you've got, more books coming down the line, but like, this is the first one where, down the line you can be like, hey, look, this was like the beginning. And I can go back as almost like a time capsule you can hold in your hand. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And even if I don't ever do a book again, like still, that's how I feel about this. I'm like, this is like a time capsule almost. And the first half of the book is all patterns and like teaching people how to crochet and yarn bomb. And it's so fun. Like I have how to crochet the alphabet in here. So it's like now whenever I need to crochet letters, I just like open up my book, crochet my letters. I used to just keep all the patterns in my head. So it's like almost, it's so nice. It really has been, it's a part of me.
It's like your own like cookbook almost, where it's like, hey, these are all my recipes. Well, and I wanted to ask you this too, because it seems like, I mean, you've got some people that are into your work that are, that are like pretty famous people. Like I know Kristen Storms. I will always remember her as Xenon from when I was a kid. We wore that movie out, but like, she follows you and I see people posting and stuff. So like, what's that like for you? You put out this book and then all of a sudden people are like, I want to learn from you. I mean, do you got like a little bit of like the Yoda complex going, or, what's that like to be like, sure. Yeah. Come on in. I'll teach you how to do this.
I did just teach Kristen Storm. She was in my class on how to yarn bomb your sneakers. So that I too was obsessed with Xenon Girl of the 21st Century. So I didn't know she was going to be in it. So it was like a surprise, which was good. Again, I like these surprises, not having to be nervous about things.
Right.
My biggest starstruck moment though, Sarah Jessica Parker follows me and I'm a huge fan of her. And I did a project for Disney on 2018, I want to say. And she came to the opening and she had been following my work prior to that. And when she got to my piece, she ran up to me and was like, I'm so happy to meet you. And I think that may have been the greatest moment of my life.
Oh, you're Carrie. You're Carrie.
That was so cool. So yeah, she's my biggest like starstruck celeb follow.
That's awesome. Yeah, and she's one of those like my wife just recently started watching Sex and the City again, and then she was in the Hocus Pocus, and they're doing the it's just like it's crazy. It's got to be crazy when somebody who is like such a part of like you growing up, or you connected with, that like up until recently had no idea that you existed, or that like you were so attached to what they've done, and then you're just like, oh, you're hugging me, like I'm losing my mind.
It was so cool. That was a fun project too. I'm actually on my floor right there. Disney's opening another art installation. It's for Mickey's 90th birthday, and they're opening in October in Tokyo.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Sadly, I would have gotten to go, but they're sending a chain link fence to my art studio, and I'm putting up the art on the chain link fence, and they're shipping it out. But it's Mickey is on my floor right now, conducting a colorful tornado of music notes.
That is awesome. I mean, it's got to be so cool just to be like, because these are, even Miller Lite, like it's a cultural icon. It's a staple. You know what I mean? And it's the same like you don't get much more like American wholesomeness than thinking about like Mickey Mouse. And you're like, yeah, now it's my job to like make a giant version and send this over to people in Tokyo that like. That I don't know. I can't imagine the feeling that must come with that. Yeah, it just seems like it would be, again, almost like you're in the like a part of the fabric, not to make puns or anything, but the fabric of like Americana in some way.
Yeah, it's really just been so. I used to think when I got emails from some of these companies that it was like a joke, like someone was faking me out through my website, just like sending me an email from the House of Valentino. I truly thought it was a joke until I was like Skyping with them and they were in Italy. Like, I was like, okay, this is real. So yeah, I always sometimes have to pinch myself, but yeah.
Well, that's well, and one other thing I did want to talk to you about, on your website, one thing that I think it's awesome that you do this. And I think it also speaks to the type of human being that you are. So, obviously you can go and you can buy the book and you can buy like individual patterns and things like that. But one of the things that I thought was really, really cool is that you have free patterns up there. So like, if you want to learn how to crochet a heart or something like that. And when I was looking at the website, my initial reaction was like, oh, if this was me, this would be like, hey, of course I want you to buy the book. I want you to buy these patterns and stuff like that. But like, I also want you to like almost find a passion for it. So like, here, try this. So was it anything? I mean, am I like kind of close to being head on, or?
Yeah. So the patterns, when I started all that, so I have these yarn kits that I did up with Lion Brand yarn, and they're like packs of yarn where people can crochet different simple yarn bombing projects. So a lot of the patterns on my website are attached to these kits. And obviously if someone's buying this, I don't want them to have to pay for the pattern. It's like part of it. Right. But recently I've been like, so I've added 2 on there, the heart one, which is the first free one, and then the vote one, which is free. The vote one has gotten over like 300 downloads in the last couple weeks ever since I put it up. And that's a lot for me. I don't know what normal people do with patterns, and I'm just like, so want people to actually make it and hang up a vote yarn bomb in their neighborhood that I just can't even imagine charging for something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe like after the election. I don't know. It's too important right now. So the vote's free. The heart's free. So many patterns are free, but I do like it. At one point, I think it would be good to put something up, maybe that's a bit more complicated and charge for it, but not yet.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I don't know. I think it's, I don't know. I mean, and I think it kind of goes back to like, obviously we're in just an insane period of time. I really do think that like 50 years from now, we're going to look back and be like, oh, this was like this was the start of it feels like almost like we're in a like second civil rights era. You know what I mean? And so
with the pandemic.
Yeah, mixed with the Spanish flu. It's just like great, thank you. And then in Colorado, they found the like bubonic plague on a rat or something. I was like, that's it. It's like it's a rat. But
yeah,
one thing that has been very, I don't know. I like there's a few people out there that I feel like are really able to kind of cut through the darkness of what's going on. And like and I definitely think that you're one of them. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, we're dealing with all this crazy stuff and so many people are divided and it's like house against house. But then you've got somebody like you who's out and it's like, let me put this like beautiful piece of art on a fence for you to enjoy this, and let me give you this template so that you can make this and you know you can find a passion and I don't know, it's just, I feel like we need, especially right now, we need more people like that in the world. And so like again, after you know realizing that I've seen your work before and then putting the dots together and like I look at your Instagram all the time. I'm like, what's like your quarantine suit that you just did?
Yeah.
Like it's like a human cocoon almost. I was like, that is so awesome.
It was really hot. It's really
I'm sure
that thing. But yeah, no, now it's been hard though to navigate. I think for a lot of people, just social media these days and like what to say has been more challenging than ever because like I never tried to do anything political really. Like I want to make things that make people happy, but it's like if I'm going to say something about the Australian wildfires, like I have to say something about George Floyd and like everything that's going on in the world right now and Black Lives Matter. And like, so when all that started, I didn't know what to do. And I just like started crocheting and like watching the news and being like, all right, let me just like figure out as I go what I'm doing. And I ended up crocheting an enormous brain filled with symbols and messages of goodness and hope. And I fell asleep. It was like June 10th. I went to bed and it was done. And I planned on waking up and hanging it in downtown LA. But I woke up like at 6 a.m. I like sat up and I like bought a plane ticket to Washington, D.C. And that same day, like by 7 p.m., I was hanging it up. It was the time when the fence was temporarily blocking the White House. Mm-hmm. And I hung it up on the fence and like, it was so powerful to be there at that time and like to hear like the support, like just to hear what was going on and be a part of it. And there was so much art being hung up, like it was incredible. And so the Smithsonian started collecting pieces. And I found out after that mine was one of the pieces that they collected a few weeks after.
That's amazing.
So it was, I mean, yeah, it was an amazing time, but like now even more than ever, everything that I'm making, I feel like I can't just hang up even if I am hanging up a heart, like that heart now needs to have like a much deeper meaning and serve a purpose bigger than it may have used to.
Well, and you know, I like, and again, I'm not like trying to like overly dote on you or anything like that. I mean, I think what you do is amazing, but you know, like when you think about the first civil rights movement, right? Like as much as we think about the people that, you know, were marching for change and we think about, you know, Bull Counter in the South and the fire hoses and all that, you also think about the artists. You think about, you know, Bob Dylan, you know, like I'm here with you and I'm writing songs about like your struggle and I want to support you. And, you know, you think about the culture and again, kind of like the fabric of that time frame in the world around it. And I think that, you know, again, what you do, I think is going to be part of that down the line. You know what I mean? And I mean, so I think it's very possible that, you know, somebody will be walking through the Smithsonian, you know, 50 years from now and be like, yeah, this is where this piece of art is from this artist, you know, and tell that story. And, you know, that's ingrained in the DNA, you know what I mean? And so it's, I don't know, it's inspirational because there's a lot of people that, you know, won't get off their couch to lift a finger and you're trying to put something positive out there in such a crazy time. Like I said, I think we need more people like that. So I appreciate that. And, I don't know if anybody else said it, but thank you. So,
Thank you. Yeah. I got to make more. I need a new idea. I don't know what to yarn bomb next. So if you ever have any ideas, let me know.
Oh, I most certainly will. Well,
Okay.
let me ask you this, kind of leading into that, like, where is, I guess, like, where do you see yourself going? Like, what's next for you? You know what I mean? Like, do you have, like, are you just kind of riding it day by day, or do you have any little secret nugs you want to share about anything that's coming up?
I love, as long as crocheting could be a part of my life, like I'm okay going down that path. I don't know what is to come. Maybe in January I would have answered this question better, but everything stopped kind of for me with work-wise when in March everything got canceled, and so slowly things have been starting to come back. But I think I'm just trying to be more cautious about what I'm saying yes to, because I think a lot of times with people in the arts, maybe they get pulled in a lot of directions because you feel like you have to say yes to things, and then you've overcommitted, and then you cannot do what you really want to do. So I'm trying to do that better. But I love fashion. I love anything bright, colorful. The art world would be fun too. If I could be maybe like a Banksy, but a lady that people know me, that would be a pretty cool trajectory.
I could see that.
A crochet version of Banksy.
I like I said, I could definitely see that, and I don't know, man. It's inspiring. I don't know how else to say it. It's like, I've talked about it on the show before, but we have a rule in my house where I'm not allowed to look at my phone like 2 hours before I go to sleep, because there's just all this. I end up staying up till like 3 a.m. because it's like, well, this happened in this date, and then there was this shooting and this happened. So like you are like your Instagram account is like my therapy dog. Like I get to go and just be like, oh, I love this so much. Look at this. This is so awesome. So it's like, I don't know. And I don't have a lot of things like that right now. So I'm really, really hanging on to it. So.
I'm so glad. No, that's really inspiring. Cause like I said, it's been challenging sometimes with social media these last few months. I just think things are changing a bit in that Instagram-y world anyways. And sometimes I'm just like, no one wants to hear from me. Just be quiet, London. Sit back. Don't do anything. So I'm glad people still get a smile when they see the crochet coming on their feed.
No, I absolutely love it. And for people who are listening who may want to check it out, what we'll link it up, but obviously we want to get people to the website to buy the book. We want to get people checking out your Instagram. Like, where are the best places for people to find you?
My website, London Kaye, spelled KAYE.com, you can find all sorts of things. The book, if you get it through my site, is signed. So I would encourage you to get it from there. And then my Instagram is Made by London, and you can find everything from that.
Awesome. Well, we will get it linked up. Make sure that everybody knows, guys, please buy the book. Like, well, let me tell you this. Check out the Instagram first. Look at all of the, because again, we talked about a little, there's so much more that you can do with crochet than like what our brains kind of default to. So please go to Instagram first, spend 2 hours like I have, and just go through the work, and then go buy the book and start doing it yourself and bring a little light and love into the world. So, thank you so much for being here. I'd really, really appreciate it. Would you hang out for a minute after we wrap up?
Of course. Thank you, John.
No problem. Guys, that is episode 31 in the books. Again, big thank you to London Kaye. Thank you so much for being here. Check out the book, check out the Instagram, and we will see you guys next week.